Hello again, everybody. Welcome to the Redacted Report. I am your host. Coming to you from an undisclosed location. In today's story, the 2022 NFL Draft has come and gone, and we're going to talk about how the Steelers did, or at least how I think the Steelers did. And this video may not be too long because I was always told if you don't have anything nice to say, don't say anything at all, and I don't really have a whole lot of nice to say about this draft. So let's just get right to it. Now, obviously, I'm not too happy about this draft. I think they made a lot of mistakes in this draft. So let's just get to it, what I think. And trust me, everybody on social media, all the Steelers fans on social media are just gushing over this draft, and I just don't understand why. It was horrible. But let's just get to it. In the first round, we took quarterback Kenny Pickett out of Pittsburgh. This was a mistake on all kinds of levels. One, Kenny Pickett is going to be an average NFL quarterback at best. Why waste a first-round pick on him? Especially when you saw how the quarterbacks fell. And like I said, I don't even think Kenny Pickett was the number one or number two quarterback in this draft, in my opinion. If they wanted to go in the first-round quarterback, I think they should have gone Desmond Ridder. I'm not super shocked they went quarterback. I'm kind of shocked they went in first round because they had a lot more needs to this. And this just... not even talking about like the on-the-field stuff. This just opens up a whole new can of worms for so much drama on this team. Basically, with them drafting Kenny Pickett, they pretty much negated signing Mitchell Trubisky. Now, I've made a video on what I think about Mitchell Trubisky, and I think if he's given a shot, he could actually flourish in Pittsburgh in this system. I think he's a really good quarterback. And yes, I think he's a better quarterback than Pickett. You know, put a curse on me if you want to, but I think he's better than Pickett. But the problem is now, you drafted the quote-unquote hometown boy, and I know he's not from Pittsburgh, obviously, but he spent, 5 years playing at Pittsburgh in the same facility. They knew him and everything. So now, no matter how good, Mitchell Trubisky can win the starting job and go out and light it up and put up Patrick Mahomes numbers. He won't do that, but I'm just saying, as an example, he could go out there and throw for 350 yards and 4 touchdowns, and the Steeler faithful will still be clamoring for Kenny Pickett. So basically, if you're going to do this, why even bother signing Trubisky if you're going to draft a quarterback in the first round anyway? And if you're going to draft Kenny Pickett, because it's just every bit of the goodwill that Mitchell Trubisky has created since he came to Pittsburgh is pretty much useless now. Everybody's just forgot about him, and now everybody's just all Kenny Pickett. So basically, you just created an unnecessary quarterback controversy. And that's just going to create more drama that this team doesn't need because they can't really handle drama. I know people think that they're this great organization, but we'll get to what I think about that in a second. But Kenny Pickett in the first round, I guess I get it. I mean, I don't care about the measurables or the hand size or whatever. That doesn't matter to me. I think Kenny Pickett is going to be a mediocre to average NFL quarterback. That's what I think, honestly. I don't see him being the guy who's going to take Pittsburgh to the next level. So, and when you draft a quarterback, and people are saying that we're not expecting Kenny Pickett to be Ben Roethlisberger. But if you take a quarterback in the first round, he's expected to be your leader for the next decade. That's a given. And I don't see that in Pickett. I mean, I could be wrong, who knows, but I think they basically just created a controversy. And Mitchell Trubisky is sitting there why the hell did I even sign here? Probably. Him and his wife thought, why do we even come here when we got to deal with this? So, I think it was a stupid move. I could be proven wrong. We'll see. I think it was a waste of a first-round pick. We had way bigger needs than quarterback. I don't think quarterback was our number one need by far, but that's a growing trend in this draft. We had needs that we did not address in this draft. And so, let's move on to the second round. We picked George Pickens, a wide receiver out of Georgia. Now, we did need a wide receiver. I get this pick, the picking of a wide receiver, because we did need a wide receiver. Obviously, Ray's gone and Juju's gone. And this pick especially, pretty much the writing is on the wall that Deontay the Drop Johnson is not going to be back after this year. We're not going to re-sign him, especially with the kind of money that wide receivers are making and with his attitude his attitude at the end of last season and basically proven that he cares more about getting his rather than winning. He's not worth the money. So I get this pick. I didn't pick him wide receiver, but George Pickens, who is immensely talented and could be talent and potential-wise, could be the steal of the second round. But he's got a lot of red flags with him and a lot of maturity issues. And I just don't understand why the Steelers have to go down this rabbit hole all the time. And, people on social media and Twitter and everything are talking about how, well, he's got these maturity issues, but he's coming to an organization that will correct that and, put him on the straight and narrow. And where are you getting that from? Everybody's talking about how Pittsburgh and the leadership and the locker room and the coaching staff, they'll shape him up. What evidence do you have to support that? How many years did they let Antonio Brown's ego run amok? They were sitting here letting Juju do all of his stupid TikTok dances in the middle of the field on the opponent's 50-yard line. Deontay Johnson's ego is starting to get a little out of control. What did the leaders, quote unquote leaders of this team, do anything to chase Claypool after what he did in that Minnesota game? There was a time where a team leader would probably end up smacking him upside his head for what he did, because he may have cost us that game. I'm not going to say he cost us the game, but he did cost us a few seconds. We could have run another play. But where's this great leadership that people say? See, there was a time where there was enough leadership on this team that could counteract the attitude of these young players, and let's just say that's in the past. That's when the teams were run by Chuck Noll and Bill Cowher. Mike Tomlin is not. I don't know where people get this thing about with Tomlin. He's not a disciplinarian. He wants to be the players' friends. He doesn't care about enforcing his own rules. He basically lets the players do whatever the hell they want. And not only that, it's not just Tomlin. We don't have any players on this team. Like Chuck Noll had guys like Jack Lambert. If you got out of line, Jack Lambert would smack you upside your head on the field in front of everybody. Bill Cowher had guys like Greg Lloyd, who would freaking hit you with a back spin kick if you got out of line like that and was acting like this. And I understand, of course, with these young people nowadays, it's a different time, and you have to treat them with kid gloves, because if you upset them in any way, they might go nuclear and scrub their social media of all mentions of the team they're on, because that's how a grown man today handles their business. Really went nuclear with that one. You showed us, buddy. But if this dude has so many red flags that a lot of GMs weren't going to touch him because he's just too immature, why does anyone think it's going to change in Pittsburgh when we've seen evidence to the contrary for the last decade, especially at the wide receiver position? And you're going to put him in the wide receiver room with guys like Johnson, especially Claypool, who is just... Claypool is nowhere near as good to be acting like the jackass that he is. Let's be honest here. And we have another pick later on that we're going to talk about, which basically probably the writing on the wall is Claypool's not going to be here after his rookie deal's up either. But the third-round pick, finally we hit a bit of a need. DeMarvin Neal, Texas A&M defensive lineman. Now this guy, he's a little raw, but he's got good size. He's got 6'4", he's 283, but he's a little raw, needs some work, but we do need some depth. Obviously, we don't know what's going on with Tuitt. Alualu's coming off of that broken ankle, and Cam Hayward, as great as he is as a player, he's getting older, and eventually he's going to start slowing down. So we needed this, and they're saying that Leo could play all across the defense. I think he's more suited at the 5 technique as a defensive end in the 3-4. He could maybe slide into the 0 technique at times, but the 283 pounds, he probably have to put another 10 to 15 pounds of bulk on him. Get up to that 300-pound mark, then he could probably really be a space eater in the middle. But this pick I don't really have a problem with as much as the first two. But it's like, I don't like raw, talented prospects. I don't like those guys. I mean, we got enough coaches on our defensive staff now that can shape these guys up. Let's just be honest here. And then we'll go to our 4th round pick, Calvin Austin out of Memphis. Now, this guy here, I'm intrigued by, even more than the Pickens pick. This is the one where I said that this probably will let Chase Claypool know that his days in Pittsburgh are probably numbered too. I mean, although they're not the same player by any means, but still, we drafted 2 wide receivers that we're going to have around for 4 years. Pickens and Austin can both be replacements in that lineup for Johnson and Claypool. But this guy here, he's kind of undersized. He's 5'8", 170. He's clearly basically going to be our slot receiver, replacing Ray McCloud. People are just clamoring over his 4.32 40 time, which, me personally, I think the 40-yard dash is the most overrated measurable in all of sports, but especially football. Like, yeah, he can run really fast in a straight line, but how often in the NFL does anyone, even a wide receiver, run in a straight line? Show me the 3-cone drill and all that other stuff. But this guy, they could use him as like a gadget guy, sort of like how I wanted the Steelers to use Ray McCloud. I remember I mentioned on Twitter, I would like to see them use Ray McCloud, sort of like the 49ers used Deebo Samuel. Of course, if people misunderstood what I was saying, as if I was trying to say that Deebo Samuel, like Ray McCloud, was on par with Deebo Samuel skill-wise, and that's not what I meant. I meant just move him around at the slot, split him out wide, put him in the backfield, run a little bit of this, like jet sweeps and crap. Now, that's what Matt Canada likes to do, and that gives me some concern because, let's face it, if there's a team that's as bad as Pittsburgh at executing jet sweeps, please point them out to me because we're pretty terrible at it. But who knows? Maybe this guy could be a guy. We don't really need a kick returner, but a guy with that kind of straight line speed. Usually you can maybe get him in there if he can get ahead of steam and just run past everybody. But I don't hate the Calvin Austin 3rd pick, and also especially with the reports coming out that Baltimore was picking right behind us and they wanted him, so we stole him from Baltimore, which is good because Baltimore's draft was good enough without this guy. So we got a guy who can be in the slot, got good speed, and a little bit of maybe used as a gadget guy, maybe a spot kick returner for paired back there with Oledukin, and we took him away from Baltimore. So I don't hate this pick. That was a pretty decent pick, and we didn't have a 5th rounder. Now here's where I have some issues with this. I have issues with obviously Pickett and Pickens. God, Pickett to Pickens. That's what everybody's saying on Twitter too. That's just driving me nuts. Pickett to Pickens. Whatever. But here's the problem. And the first problem is a 6th round pick, Connor Hayward, a fullback out of Michigan State. Why? I know why. It's because he's Cam's brother. That's the only reason we picked this guy. There's this team is talking about how now we finally have a fullback. Like we've had Derek Watt for 2 years, and like when he's healthy, we hardly use a fullback. We hardly use a fullback or in quote unquote H-back. We hardly use that. We have not consistently used a fullback since Dan Kreider. Okay, and that was when Cowher was still around. Tomlin and his offensive coaches in Canada, they don't use fullbacks that often, so this was a wasted pick. And there were guys that they could have taken. They could have taken Curtis Brooks, a defensive tackle out of Cincinnati, to provide more defensive line depth. Tariq Castro-Fields, a cornerback out of Penn State, to provide some secondary depth and to push the other corners to some playing time. Or we could have got Chris Paul, an offensive lineman out of Tulsa, who can play guard and tackle, kind of interchangeable, because we needed some depth at the offensive line and maybe someone to push Chooks a little bit. But no, we had to take Cam Hayward's brother, Connor, who is not. I would be surprised. He's practice squad fodder. And I understand it's the 6th round, but there were better players they could have taken. They took him just because he's Cam's brother. So they're trying to kiss Cam's ass like they were kissing TJ's ass when we signed Derek. We don't utilize fullbacks very much, so I don't know why we signed a fullback for that much money in Derek Watt and why we drafted a fullback at all. We could, you need to have a fullback on your roster, we could just pick one up as a rookie free agent. We utilize them on special teams a little bit and maybe 1 or 2 snaps a game. And I don't care what they say, it's not going to change. They're not going to utilize a fullback enough to constitute drafting one when we had other needs. So that was just a stupid pick. Like I said, I don't like, but I can understand the Pickett and Pickens, but Connor Hayward was foolish. And then in the 7th round, we had 2 picks. The first one was Mark Robinson, a linebacker out of Ole Miss. This guy has Brian Flores project written all over him, because Pittsburgh does do that sometimes. They have been known to do this at times with players. They'll draft players that a position coach sees as a project and wants to work with. Like last year, Kendrick Green was clearly an Adrian Clem pick. Of course, that didn't work out, and Clem hightailed it to Oregon, and if I was there, I would have helped him pack his bags to get his ass out of Pittsburgh quicker. But this guy here, because he's got good athleticism. He's only played linebacker for 1 year after switching from running back, so he's got some speed. He's a little undersized at 5'11", 235. People are projecting him on the inside. Maybe, 5'11", 235 for an inside linebacker and a 3'4", that's a little smaller than I would like, but, like they say, it ain't the size of the dog in the fight; it's the size of the fight in the dog. So who knows? This guy might be beast. And Brian Flores, like I said, we got a lot of defensive assistants that can whip some players into shape and put a foot in their ass. And maybe this guy will be good, especially with the news coming out that we've declined Devin Bush's 5th-year option. We're going to need obviously some depth there. So who knows? I don't know. I don't hate this pick as a project in the 7th round. So we'll see what happens. Probably won't be much. Maybe another practice squad fodder, maybe a spot special teamer. But who knows? This guy could turn out to be a star. You never know. And then our last 7th round pick is Chris Oledukin, quarterback out of San Diego State, or excuse me, South Dakota State, not San Diego State. My apologies. This draft is so stupid. It's got me stupid too. They drafted him because they wanted 4 QBs in camp. This guy is not going to make the team. We're not going to cut Mason Rudolph as bad as you people want to, okay? Mason Rudolph is still a guy who knows the offense better than any quarterback on the roster, so we're keeping Mason for 1 more day. So this guy is basically going to be someone to stash on the practice squad for some emergency depth. He's basically like the new, more athletic Duck Hodges at this point, and Duck sucked. I don't want to hear anyone say how great Duck was. He was garbage. So, like I said, we had bigger needs than a lot of this stuff. That's our draft. We did not really address many needs. I guess you could say we did address the wide receiver need, although Pickens, it's a high-risk, high-reward scenario. Maybe he'll grow up and he'll be the guy we need and everything. Calvin Austin, I think, if utilized right, can be a nice little gadget guy. And like I said, with that speed, if he can get around the edge on some jet sweeps and things, he can outrun pretty much anybody. The problem is, football's not a track meet, but I get that. The Kenny Pickett one I find puzzling. I know why they did it, but I do think that they basically, any goodwill that's been created on both sides with Mitchell Trubisky is now gone. So who knows if that's going to create some malcontents in the locker room. Are you going to have like one half of the locker room clamoring for Pickett to play? Or are you going to have another half on the Trubisky side? That could fracture a locker room. And this locker room is very fragile, okay? This team doesn't have it together as much as people think. But, what do I know? I just have eyes. So, and the fans, doesn't matter what Trubisky does now. The fans are going to want to see Pickett now. The fans want Pickett to start right away, and he's nowhere near ready to start right away. And in my old video, and I made a few weeks ago with my top 5 quarterbacks, I had him at number 3, I believe, and I've always seen him as basically a Ryan Tannehill 2.0. So, Ryan Tannehill's a decent quarterback, but there are better options out there. If you wanted to take a quarterback in the first round, I was saying before the draft, if you want to do that, trade back into the end of the first round, early second, pick up some extra draft picks and take Desmond Ridder. And hell, you didn't even have to do that because he didn't go to the 3rd round. I think Desmond Ridder would have been a better fit for Pittsburgh in this situation. I wasn't a fan of Malik Willis either. I think Malik Willis did go to a decent situation because he won't be thrust into that starting job, but I think Desmond Ridder is going to be a stud in Atlanta, and I think he could have been a stud in Pittsburgh. So, I get it, but I don't like it. The Pickens, like I said, high risk, high reward. Not great. The red flags bother me because I'm jaded by Antonio Brown and Juju, even though everybody thinks that Juju just farts rainbows, but I don't. The Marvin Leal, kind of a raw project, 3rd round. You don't really want the raw projects, but I mean, we need depth. We still have Loudermilk. Hopefully Loudermilk will take that step back because we don't know what's going on with Tuitt. Is he injured? Is he got some issues going on? Is this with his brother? Is he still not over that? We don't know. Now, if there was some issues like that, I figure we probably would have traded him before the draft to pick up some picks. So who knows what's going on with him. The Connor Hayward pick as a fullback was just stupid. That was just dumb as hell. And only did it because he's Cam's brother. He will not make any kind of impact whatsoever on this team. If you think he is, you're a fool. The Mark Robinson, like I said, time will tell. We'll see what Flores can do with him. He's obviously a player for the future. The Oledukin quarterback, 7th round was, it was better than last year's 7th round pick when we took that fat ass punter who can't kick a ball. He's terrible. But, what are we going to do? But things they missed on, they did not get a running back to back up Najee Harris, which was a mistake. Hopefully they can find a Jim as a rookie free agent or something, because the running backs we have behind Najee are trash. And Najee takes way too much punishment. He needs someone to spell him. Because it's like the way Najee plays, and as much as he's playing and many touches as he gets, he's not going to last more than 5 more years in the league. Let's just be honest here. So we need a good backup running back. We did not address that. I still think we needed more depth on the O-line. I know that we made some moves in free agency, but I would like to have seen maybe take a tackle in the early rounds to push Chooks, because I don't think that Chooks is being paid like the starting right tackle, but I think you could have found someone to at least, put a little heat on him, make him play a little better. They did not get an edge rusher at all, which I think we need. We need some backup edge rushers, obviously. TJ Watt's great, but he gets nicked up at times. He could use a breather, especially early on in the season. I honestly wouldn't care if he's on a snap count for the first 8 or 9 games of the season and then, up his reps later on, because I'd rather have him fresh in January if we make the playoffs. And Alex Highsmith really hasn't done anything of note. He's made some plays, but he needs to get more consistent. Someone behind him would have been great. I think we made a mistake last year of cutting Quincy Roche. I think he would have been a great guy for the future. But, like I said, that was my opinion. Maybe this Mark Robinson guy, who was a former running back switching to linebacker, maybe he could move to the edge rusher spot and do a little bit of stuff like that to take some pressure off him. Like I said, I love TJ. Alex Highsmith is good and needs to get better, but you need guys for the rotation. They didn't really do any of that stuff. So if I had to put a grade on this draft, I'd give him a D-. People are talking about the Cowboys draft was the worst. I think the Steelers had the worst draft. And the Steeler fans will not agree with me at all, but I did not see really anything in this draft that popped for me. This was one of the worst drafts the Steelers have ever had. And like I said, I don't see Pickett being that guy to get us over the hump. Pickens, we'll see what happens with his attitude issues. Defensive guys like Leal and Robinson are just got raw potential, but we'll see if they can be molded and turned into NFL players. Jury's out. Calvin Austin, like I said, if I had to pick the best pick of this draft, it'd be Calvin Austin if he's utilized properly. If he's utilized in the slot, he could be a nice little playmaker for us, sort of like Ray. I think they should have used Ray a little more than they did. He wasn't a great return man, but he had some potential as a kind of a gadget guy in the offense. Hopefully they use Austin this way. I think he was our best pick, but the rest of it, I could have done without it. We had bigger needs that we didn't address. So as good as the Steelers were in the free agency, they were equally as bad in the draft, and nothing's going to change my mind unless these guys produce and we end up being a Super Bowl contender. Because the problem with this is, in free agency, the guys we brought into free agency, it looked like we were going to be a team that can compete with the best in the AFC. Now, after this draft, we look like the 3rd or 4th best team in the AFC North, because Cincinnati got better and Baltimore especially got better. Good Lord. And we'll see where the Browns are if Deshaun Watson can return to form after all this stuff going on in this year layoff. They're going to be right in the mix too, so who knows what's going to happen. We needed to nail this draft and we just didn't. So it's a D-. That's the way I see it. Let me know what you think in the comments section. And I thank you all for watching, and I hope you'll join me next time on the Redacted Report. Take care.